Hi, Easy here. Welcome to a follow-up video to my Exsanguinate Reap Blood character. I'm currently sitting at level 89, finished Urlab, and adjusted my skill tree as well as all of my gearing. And as you notice on the bottom left corner, we are going low life and pretty much reserving all of our mana as well. We are fully block capped for attack, so if I can get my there we go, 78, 70. So it's a very sturdy character in terms of hits. We also have life block on hit on our shield. So generally things that hit, unless they one-shot us and get through our block chance, it won't be killing us too easily. But degens have been very, very dangerous. So that's one thing that I think will need to be the next problem to tackle if I want to invest more into this character. But here's a quick map showcase. It's going to be a shrine map with pretty decent mods. A tier 16. I finished the Cyrus without too much problem on Awakening 5. Not too crazy, but also a pretty good metric of like how much damage this character has. So one thing about Exsanguinate, as I was progressing through the Atlas, is that as soon as it started to hit red tier maps, it was really struggling. And the main reason why it struggled is because I didn't make any investment into the gear at all. I was still using same gear that I found in the Acts, nothing bought, nothing really invested into. So because it's a dot character, the damage output, well, this applies to almost any builds in general, but once your damage starts to taper off, then you really have a hard time because and let's be honest, DPS is the best defensive mechanic that you have. If things can't hit you because they're dead, you don't even need to have defenses. So because of that reason, I was struggling early on. What the fuck? I was struggling pretty early on. I did not see that coming at all. With higher tier maps, but after I got some of the defenses and especially offensive components taken care of, the build has been going much smoother. I did die a lot because I was kind of limit testing and seeing how my build felt with different setups, with things like low life, what kind of defensive mechanic, what kind of recovery mechanic, and such. And I came to the conclusion that if you want to be tanky, you don't use Petrified Blood. If you do want to be more DPS oriented, just go ahead and use it. It's like the trade-off from before is exactly the same. Like, it's not like we went Shavron's wrappings for the defensive attributes. You went for it for the fact that you can go low life and get 30% extra damage. But outside of that, the build is extremely smooth. After I made proper investments into my gear, which weren't even that expensive, it's been clearing very smoothly. And I even made some adjustments to the gems, namely combining the Reap and Corrupting Fever 4-links into one pseudo 4-link for both slots. So we're actually running Reap and Reap and Corrupting Fever on a 3-link, and we have a pseudo 4-link gloves. And I'll show you that in detail later down the line. But as you can see, clearing is phenomenal. You wouldn't even notice that this is T16 outside of the one shot that I got from the Legion encounter. And the damage on single target is also pretty decent considering it's physical dot. And in terms of investment, it's nothing too out of the ordinary. Maybe 1 or 2 exalts. Maybe a little more now that the economy has settled down a bit and some items are more expensive, some items are less expensive. But considering this map has increased unique boss damage and life, I believe. Yeah, 30% more life and 25% more life on top of that. So this guy is considerably tankier than your typical mobs in tier 16 maps. But yeah, that's pretty much the map. Fairly straightforward outside of the random deaths. Random death from the Karui guy jumping across the screen. But let me go over in detail of kind of what changes I made to the gems and skill tree and gear, basically everything. Let's first go over our passive tree. I think that's the most important one. So before I used to go down all the way over here with call to arms and such, but this entire section of the tree just isn't as important as some of the notables available in the shadow area, as well as some of the block nodes available in the witch area. So what I decided to do is I dropped all of this. All of those points basically went into this cluster jewel section. So I'm using a spell cluster jewel with 3 notables just to save passive. Ideally, you want to have another, instead of essence rush, you want to have a block chance spell block notable. I think it's called Mage Hunter. Mage Hunter and Conjured Wall with a random third one would be best on the suffix. But those were far more expensive than this was. I think this was like maybe 10 chaos. So ideally you want to have that. And for our medium notables, I have 2 item level 70 5 passive node medium cluster jewels. These are by far cheap, like much cheaper than item level 75, because item level 75 medium cluster jewels can start to roll 14% physical damage over time notable with skills that spend life, I believe. So if I wanted to have an ideal cluster jewel, it would be Rend, and that notable. But because I'm trying to save on money, I was a little bit out of my budget. I went ahead with self-crafted ones. Rend is extremely easy to just alt into, and getting a second notable is not that difficult either. So that's what I'm working with right now. This set of cluster jewels adds a significant amount of damage, as well as having an extra block chance if you've casted a spell recently. Another thing that I decided to go for is this elusive on kill effect, and this is something that I noticed from other hardcore ladder Scions that were going similar builds as I was. This elusive on kill effect is actually extremely effective for adding tankiness during mapping, which is honestly when you need it the most to avoid random deaths, and it also gives you an extra movement speed, which can help with mapping. Arcane Swiftness is something that's extremely valuable because it adds spell damage per or spell damage per block chance. Same thing with Command of Steel, which is what I anointed, and more spell block from the Witch area through Mystic Bulwark and Arcane Guarding, this set of wheels. So these are what I would consider to be fairly important in terms of your survivability, as well as damage output in the form of the Command of Steel and Arcane Swiftness. These 2 notables alone gives us 150% increased damage. There's other things that we can optimize on our passive skill tree that that will bring increases. So adding things like another small jewel socket, adding another jewel socket, going for more life here. I believe there's 12%, 17%, 22%, 22% life off of 5 passive nodes, which will be a pretty big boost to our effective life pool. But that requires us to level up, and I haven't really gotten around to focusing on leveling up just yet. Mainly wanted to focus on like how do I get my damage up, so that I don't spend 50 hours playing the game and trying to beat a boss. So with that passive tree out of the way, let's go look over the gear real quick. So I managed to buy a socketed spell when you use a skill with 8-second cooldown before I got the Betrayal craft unlocked for about like 10-15 chaos. All I had was a physical spell skill gem and like the crafted on trigger mod, and that was it. And that serviced me for like until red maps. And then I got this wand with another extra 100% spell damage, give or take. So you don't need anything too spectacular. If you add on something like another +1 to spell gems, that's like 10% more damage. But that's much higher investment, probably in the exalts range, to get that. For my shield, I bought like a 50 chaos shield with life on block. That's pretty much the most important stat that you can get, as high as possible, 5%. And I just crafted on life here. For my helmet, it's just life and resistances. That's all it is. You can also get life and resistances on a glove, because there is, if you're going low life, that is, because the new delirium, the new essences have a, on the glove, essence of, I believe, delirium has a suffix for 30% more damage over time. But on the helm, I think essence of horror, or one other essence has, if you're low life, socketed gems deal 30% more damage, which is a generic more damage as well. So technically speaking, in our build, it would be better for us to have the helm, and it is cheaper for you to roll with the essence on the helm, because the essence of delirium, which is the damage over time glove essence, is 30 chaos versus 20 chaos last time I checked. But I already bought the helm for like 20 chaos, so I didn't want to resell it and find a new one for the glove and just go through all that hassle. So I just crafted on the glove. I got really lucky with the resistance and the dexterity, which is something that I needed at that time. And I also managed to craft on a prefix of socketed AoE gems, which applies to Reap. Yeah. So I'm level 23 Reap. Boots, nothing too special, just life, resistances, and movement speed. This is something I picked up in the acts from an Ultimatum, so nothing too crazy. Doriani's Invitation, this is a physical life leech belt. So I'll talk about life leech in a little bit more detail in a bit, but this really helps out with sustain for mapping. It doesn't help as much when it comes to single target, just due to the nature of how leech works. And this is the main reason why it leads me to believe that when you're doing exsanguinate physical or physical damage over time build, going low life is honestly not the best option in my opinion. You can easily make up the damage in other ways, I believe, without sacrificing so much of the survivability. But I wanted to go low life, so that is what it is. As for the ring, this is just resistance and life ring that I've been using for a while. The other ring is a vulnerability on hit ring that I bought very last minute with like 40 energy shield and life that I crafted on. So this is, you just get a vulnerability ring, bare bones, and it adds about 20%, not 20%, but like 15% increased damage to your overall damage output. And for the necklace, I have physical damage, +1 level of all physical skill gems, and 50 life. Amulet with more dex, because that's the stat that we need the most. And anointed command of steel. That's it. That's my entire gear. I have tabula rasa, just for the 6th link. I could easily drop this for a more defensive chest with like 120 life, maximum life, and then maximum life gained is energy shield from the benchcraft and such, but that's something that I'm working on. As for flask, just Rumi's concoction for the block chance, and I need to get rid of this one, swap it out so that they're both not granite flasks, but it's immune to curse. I have an onslaught with immune to freeze, a cautious divine flask with staunching, and then just adrenaline quicksilver. Nothing too special. When it comes to gems, in my trigger wand, I have Tempest Shield, Desecrate, and Boon Offering. You always want to have the Desecrate before the Boon Offering, because the way that trigger order is you want to desecrate first, and then have the bone offering trigger on top of the desecrated area. So you always want to have the order of top to bottom. So it doesn't matter if desecrate is on the first slot or second slot, but bone offering has to be after desecrate. On my helm, I have Petrified Blood with Pride, War Banner, and Enlightened support. That's currently leveling with 0 quality for some reason. Let me fix that. So this is something that I changed very last minute, which I think has been working out very well, because what I did is I took my Corrupting Fever and my Reap, instead of having them on 2 separate 4 links, as such, with like more extra support gems here, I combined them into a single 4-link setup with the Essence mod with 30% more damage over time. So essentially both of these are 4 links, give or take, but I save on a whole 4 gem sockets, so for me to put other things into. And what did I gain from it? I gained Vitality with the Enlightened support, and I also gained a Immortal Call on damage taken, cast 1 damage taken, because the number 1 problem that this build suffers from is damage over time effects. So I went ahead and swapped from Soul of the Brine King to Soul of Arakali for the extra damage taken over time reduction, as well as Soul of Shakari for the reduced chaos damage taken as well. The next thing that I want to work on is like my chaos resistance. This is far too low for me to feel comfortable going into like more endgame content, and I would also want to work on elemental ailment immunity. So we can get I believe 35% on our chest, 25% on our gloves, so that's 60%. We get 20% from arcane swiftness, and we can also get 20% on our, I believe, helmet if we can craft it on there, which I believe, to my knowledge, we can. So you can get 100% ailment immunity. The only problem is that you're now fighting for suffixes in a lot of cases, so it will require me to have extremely high rolls on the resistances on all my gear, as well as having high chaos resistance. So that's something that I don't really see myself being able to do with this character, because I want to try other characters as well. But capping out chaos resistance would be the next thing that I want to take on, as well as getting divine flesh so that we have higher chaos resistance, maximum chaos resistance. So that's kind of where the character is. It's been very strong, and the investment definitely pays off. I actually haven't invested too much into it in the first place, but each gear that I acquired, I still have all of this stuff that I was using before. Each item that I acquired has been extremely noticeable in the damage increase or the survivability increase that it provides. As for Petrified Blood, the way that Leech works makes it so that each hit only recovers, each hit is 1 instance of Leech, and you need minimum of 5 separate instances of Leech. I believe it's 10 instances of Leech to be able to reach Leech cap. And because we aren't a build that hits very fast, nor do we do a lot of hit damage in the first place, each Leech is gonna, like, we can't ever cap our Leech, especially when we need it the most, because each Leech is only gonna last like half a second. So the fact that we're low life and having overleech with Petrified Blood does literally nothing for our build. So it leads me to believe that going low life on a damage over time build is not ideal. As for path of building, I finally have a path of building that I feel comfortable sharing. If it's gonna pop up. Yeah, so it's gonna reflect my current character to the best of my ability. The thing that's most notable is this full DPS. We're looking at about 1.3 million, which is easily sustainable um, the because of our skill effect duration investment. And I'll just save that. And there are a lot of things that we can do to our build to improve our damage output. So getting something like a wand with extra fizz gem, getting a shield with +1 to fizz gem, getting a necklace with +1 to fizz, +1 to strength gem. Those three changes alone will add about 30% more damage. Getting an actual chest, maybe with frenzy on hit or explode mod maybe. That will also increase our clear and our damage output. Just having frenzy charges increases our damage output by about 10%, so that's another 10% there. Better cluster jewels with actual physical damage over multipliers will also increase our damage by about 10%, because each one increases about 7% right now. Having small jewels, these cobalt jewels with physical damage over time, will also increase our damage pretty substantially, as well as providing max life. So there's a ton of things that we can do defensively and offensively that we can improve on our character to push it to the next level. Obviously, we have Watcher's Eye stuff. We have more jewels, more optimized jewels. We have better gear with Keystone and Divine Flesh to increase our survivability. So if you're interested in like really min-maxing this character, there's plenty of things that you can still do to make it feel more comfortable and feel more endgame worthy. I'll recommend not going Pain Attunement and seeing if damage is sufficient in with a min-max character, and just increasing your survivability by like metric buttload more. But I think for my character right now, I think this is sufficient, and hopefully you guys gain some insight on how you can set up your character, and if you want to even try this character in the first place. I think it's been a very fun experience trying to figure this out, despite some of the issues we had early in the league launch. But hopefully you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys next time.